75 years ago today, British aircraft launched an attack on the East German city of Dresden, beginning one of the most controversial Allied assaults of World War II. Over the following days, they and their US allies would drop nearly 4,000 tons of bombs, killing 25,000 people and ravaging the city centre. Today, Germany is marking the event with ceremonies to remember the victims. Well, let's join our correspondent Jenny Hill, who's in Dresden for us now. Jenny.
Yes, had you stood in this spot 75 years ago tonight, you would have witnessed scenes of almost unimaginable horror. Later today, thousands of people will gather here in Dresden to remember not only the victims of the firebombing, but all those who died in the violence and conflict of World War II.
It was, in the words of one survivor, like being in hell. On the evening of the 13th of February 1945, British and American bombers targeted Dresden in a series of raids. On the ground below, 25,000 people died in the firestorm that followed. Ursula Elsner, who was 14, told us that the fire was so intense she and her family had to cling to a lamppost to avoid being sucked into the flames.
Nun standen wir an der Laterne. Da sahen wir dann, wie unser Haus.
We stood clinging to the lamppost, then we saw our house collapse.
Krachte runter und die Steine.
First the facade crashed down and the bricks rolled up to our feet.
Und hier war ja das Haus. Die purzelten bis hier an unser.
And my mother said, now we've lost everything, now we're homeless.
As were many others. Dresden, a city once famed for its beauty and architecture, was destroyed. And 75 years later, it remains a powerful symbol of the horror and destruction of war.
And it's a symbol of reconciliation too. Later, people will join hands to form a human chain around the old part of the city centre, partially in defiance of the far right, who are renewing their attempts to exploit this day of commemoration for their own purposes. The political party AfD, for example, in this part of the country is very keen to change what it calls Germany's culture of shame over its World War II history. But many of those people will be joining hands in acknowledgement too that Germany bears not only a historic but ongoing responsibility to ensure that the atrocities of the Second World War are never repeated.